So you can tell when a UI is AI generated. Typically, the titles are too bold, there's too much letter spacing, it's always the same font, and typically devoid of personality. And even if you use a tool like Aura, which gives a pretty good starting point as a first prompt, it's still using the same colors, purple, gradients, and so on. It's not trying to be creative with the fonts. So in this video, we're going to explore how we can turn this layout into something like this. Now, what you're noticing is we're changing the fonts, we're changing the colors, thanks to the new feature that I worked on, which allows you to essentially quickly select between font pairings, even for someone who's a beginner. And also for the colors, you can change between light and dark mode. Just like in Figma with selection colors, you can selectively highlight the elements so that you can change through dozens or hundreds of elements in a single click, just like this. And also, we can change the background using a spline background such as this one and this one. And so you can make your design so much more unique. I mean, look at this, right? We generated something and it gave us a really nice starting point, but with just a few clicks, we managed to turn this into dark mode. We changed the background, and as you can see, we changed the colors so that I can quickly switch. I can quickly switch the themes, and also I can quickly switch the kind of backgrounds that I can use, or I can also use a high resolution image from Unsplash. So for example, if I'm using a mesh gradient, so you can imagine that you can try different backgrounds that really match the design that you're creating. And this background works really well even when you're scrolling. So there's a lot of one-click options that make your design so much more customized, but not necessarily scary. You don't need to go to every single element and try to edit each one of them, which can be a little bit not just scary, but for veterans in design, it can take quite a lot of time, and we're missing a lot of consistency as well. So for example, if we change one here, well, we'll also have to change one here and here and here. And so it saves a lot of time if you know what you're doing. And even if you don't know what you're doing, to be able to replace these elements quickly and to see where it's going to apply, it's going to save so much time. So all these designs that you see here using Aura are all generated, but they went through a phase of 10% human work where we're adding, images and backgrounds and changing the colors and the fonts, making it more unique to your brand and to your vision, and creating something that really can command more attention to your product, which brings higher conversion, which also creates a brand that people can recognize. So, having different backgrounds, different layouts, different images, you spend really that time stitching everything together to make something that looks beautiful to you and to your audience. All right, let's back up a little bit. The product that I'm using right now is called Aura. It allows you to generate a design, and it's definitely more design focused. So of course, you can do the same with Lovable and V0, but here we have these extra options that I mentioned before, which allows you to generate live and also change the fonts, the colors, the assets, and of course, go into design mode and also code mode. So that's what's this Aura, and we're gonna back up a little bit and start from scratch and also look at every single example one by one as to how we can customize the design in a manner that is not too difficult and very efficient. So again, one of my favorite ways to generate a design is simply to go to your favorite website or inspiration such as Instagram. You go to explore here and you're looking for a design that might inspire you as a foundation. So for example, this one, then you can take a screenshot. It doesn't have to be high quality. I think AI is just there to sort of take inspiration from the colors, the layout, the fonts, and all that stuff. You can also use ChatGPT, for example, to take an inspiration and create an image out of that. A lot of people used to do that. And Midjourney is another resource that is really good. You can generate videos, you can generate UI, even though they're not quite as good for text unless you specify specifically what to say in the design. But let's say you have a lot of details in the design, it's going to have a lot of trouble. But it can give you good inspiration, good colors, good layouts. Then you go to an app like Aura and you're going to insert the image as an inspiration. And then you type these words or you use the prompt builder. If your image or your inspiration doesn't have a lot of details, you might want to add details, change the names, lucid icons, and make responsive. And so let's generate this. And it's going to do that, and it's going to show us the results live. And then we're going to be able to determine from there how we want to change it. But if we look at the original here, so this is the difference from O3. And then we're also using Claude 4 to change from O3 to the final result. And sometimes it's going to change the style because every model is trained differently. O3 seems to be a little bit more consistent, and also it's going to try different styles of fonts, and it's going to be a bit more unique in terms of coloring. Versus Claude can deal with more complexity, but also it comes with the cost of always using the same purple gradients and stuff like that. So this is something that you will get better over time. And you can see it's quite interesting. I would say that Claude 4 is definitely more creative, but O3 is a bit more kind of better at following the original design through vision. And so it's quite interesting. So this is what we have so far. And I think it looks quite good. Like I said, we want to spend the last 10% on this design. And we can compare it. This is O3, so I'm going to click on it. It looks a little bit like this. There's less detail. As I mentioned before, there's less complexity. And we switch to the O4, not O4, but Claude 4. And then we're clearly seeing more details into the design. And at this point, we can just start customizing it. So now we're going to go to the font, and here we have the font pairing. So as usual, we have the inter, which is pretty much what every AI is going to go to by default. But you also have the sister one, which is Geist, which a lot of people like as well. And then Manrope, and then Playfair, if you want to, like, maybe for like a skincare or, a little bit more serif type of font. And Instrument is quite popular right now. Jakarta. Then if you get into the rounded fonts, which is great for kids app, then you can go Nunito or Quicksand. And if you have something a bit more for coding or for data, then you want to use Space Grotesk or Geist Mono, right? So you have a lot of these options, and thankfully we're kind of breaking it down to the most popular ones that I personally recommend, pairing it with the title being different and also the body being different. The other thing that I really like to experiment with is also to be able to customize the lightness of the boldness of the headings. I think AI tends to go with bold, and again, we don't want your design to smell like AI, right? Like everyone can tell that it's AI from a mile away. We want to avoid that. And right now, what I would say is that most designs have bold, which means that, typically in the design world, we want to use the right weight. And typically would be a semi-bold or medium. But you can also be a bit more creative. You want to make it look a little bit more refined. You can use regular or even light to make it more unique. So that's what I would recommend. And then for titles, depending on how much space that you have between the letters, you can switch between. Usually AI likes to go with default. As you can see, there's a little bit too much space between the letters, so you might want to go with tight. This is something that I train Aura to do, but you can also go with tighter, which I think looks even better for titles. And and yeah, you can see like what it's applying to, and the body text, and also the detected fonts. Once you have set the body text and the headings. So the detected font, if you don't have those set up, it's just gonna say, there's nothing detected so far, which is why once you have these selected, then it's going to have the detected font and you can customize like that. It's pretty cool. Now let's get into the colors, right? One of my favorite feature is to be able to switch between light and boom, dark mode, which is so cool because, typically if you come from the world of Figma, this requires setting variables, setting each element to the variable, and then, changing, like selecting multiple elements and then changing the properties from light to dark mode. And it's just very, very complex, which again, it's great if you're a designer and you have a lot of time to spend on it. But if you're a beginner and you just want something really convenient, but also that looks good and unique, then, I think this is just amazing. And on top of that, you want to avoid the purple, right? The purpleness of your design. So you might want to switch to, orange. You want to switch to greenish or blue. And if you want to be more adventurous, you can also color all the neutral colors to be a bit more colorful. And again, it doesn't always work for every single design, but it does work for a lot of elements and a lot of designs. But, again, you go with the vibe, right? You go with what you feel looks good. And that is through a lot of taste training. You're going to be using a lot of apps. You're going to be looking at a lot of beautiful designs. And at that point, you're going to know exactly, okay, this is the font that I want. This is the colors that I want. And, and then you can go more granular. And, let's say you don't want like to have a full theme of it. You can just go to each one. Maybe you want something a bit more bluish. So you can do that. Or you want something to be a little bit more orangey, or you want something to be, so the neutral tones to be more stone or neutral. Neutral is more gray, but stone is a bit more brownish. So you can do that as well. So you can see it's changing your design, it's changing the personality, but you don't have to spend hours or even days on that design. Now, the same way you're going to be able to select the element and see what's going on. You have also the detected colors. And one of my favorite things to do is to be able to select specific elements or styles of colors, so such as gradients here. And you can see this is a lot of gradients, but I can see that this is applying to the logo as well as the heading. And I can quickly switch to maybe this color here, or something more blue, or something a little bit more green. So it's entirely up to you how you want to match your colors and how you want to apply that to your design. But I think this gives you a ton of options to customize, and you can filter by text, background, border, and here we only have a couple of border in this specific design. And yeah, I can quickly change to something a bit more orange, for example. And then you can, of course, come back as well if you don't like the changes. All right, so now it's time to change the assets, right? So we have the ability to select and change here, but also you have the ability to go to assets. And this is where, if your layout allows, you can have different backgrounds, such as this one. You're not going to see it, but let's say this one, and it has a spline background that is in the background. Some of them might work better with some
layouts, but you can see this one works quite well. And we have a bunch of them. And, you know, you can have the robot, or you can have, you know, this beautiful. So it's going to take a bit of time. It has to load it. And also make sure that you're playing the layout, because, you know, one option that I added recently is to be able to pause and play, because if you're editing, you don't always want to refresh the layout over and over. It's very distracting. So that's kind of like how I try to deal with it. And you can see we have animated background that can really fit nicely in making your layout more unique. Think of it more like Stripe. They like to do that a lot. So we have a lot of options here. I can also remove it, come back to where it was. We have video, which is amazing if you have like a high resolution video and if you don't mind the bandwidth. We can also use like AI generated video such as VO or midjourney video, which is something that I want to cover very, very soon. And then we have images, which I find super cool, because then we can use Unsplash. And also we're going to use a high resolution image of Unsplash specifically. So for example, if I want this beautiful image as a background, you know, instead of a gradient, and this is high resolution. So, you know, it's a 4K image. And yeah, you know, just play with different colors, different themes, different mesh gradients, and you know, you can also have specific theme like nature or wallpapers or textures that can really fit with your design. And in just a few clicks, you're really able to change the tone and the voice. And yeah, you can also be more granular. So I can go to design mode and select this specific section. And of course, we have the usually all of these options in design mode where you can set the padding, the spacing, alignment, typography, and all that stuff. Of course, if you're a designer, you're going to feel at home with this. If you're not, then you might want to just, you know, go to specific elements such as a background. So I can just select this specific section, and maybe I want to have like a different background. And what is cool about this is that, yes, I can change the resolution depending on the size of my element. And I can also, once I have images, which is really important, because oftentimes AI is going to generate a layout with different images. So sometimes it's very tough to select where that image is, right? And also sometimes it's behind certain elements. So what you do in those cases is you go to assets, and here it's going to detect all the images of your design, which is really cool. And then from here, you can switch one by one quite easily. It's really, really powerful for like something like avatars and images that are being used. So yeah, you know, quickly change that. As you can see, we have this here. And then for the background, then yeah, we can use something else entirely. And there you go. We have something that is entirely different. And if we look at the original inspiration, right? This was the original inspiration, and we went through O3, we went to Claude 4, and then we went through the styling of the fonts. And if you look here, I'm gonna save, and you can also preview the animation, or go to design mode, and here we don't have the animation unless you click on the play. And then you can also enable or disable the left sidebar, which has your history of design. So here, this is the original design that we had. And yes, we also have like different, you know, preview modes, such as for tablet, for desktop, for iPhone, how it's going to look like. And we have the ability to see, you know, in the normal mode, if you will, like the way you would browse a normal website. This is the design that came from that. So we have the screenshot here that looks like this, very bare bone. And then we went through Claude 4, right? And then we went through, you know, the customization that we did, and it's completely customized. It has a voice, it has a personality, it has a brand. And that's exactly what you're looking for. And we didn't need to spend, hours or days on a design that looks sophisticated and really that stands out from the crowd. All right, so let's take a look at the ideation process and the editing process of some of these designs that I'm doing, including this one. So for example, when you first start with, let's say, a screenshot, you might look at something like this. So this is a specific style. This is created by O3. And then sometimes you might get into something a bit more AI-ish, which is Claude 4, but it has more details. And so each model has their strengths, right? And yeah, Claude 4 likes to use purple a lot. This is something that you will get used to. But one thing to note is that you definitely want to use specific icons to make it easier for the editing process. Keep in mind that we're not necessarily going with the final, especially if you're a designer. You might have your own icons library, or you might want to generate your own assets that you're going to put into Cursor or Lovable. But in this case, we're just going through sort of the mood boarding and the generation of the concept, the colors and the theme and the general design as a foundation, which is why I recommend to use something like, Lucid, which is very easy and it works really well with AI. It's not going to generate like these empty icons or these broken icons that AI tends to bring you. And but I didn't like this so much. I wanted to go back to O3, which is why I kind of like opened this one. And when I opened this one and then I prompt using this one, then here I was using O3. I just asked to give more details. It did give some issues with it, but then I went back to O3 again and I asked to fix, and then eventually it gives me a little bit better. And when I'm pretty cool with the direction, at that point, I went with Claude 4. And Claude 4, as you can see, it's more full-featured, and it definitely completes the design more compared to O3. And you can see we have something that I'm starting to be satisfied with, and eventually I just fixed the issue here. So when something doesn't work, you can just say just remove it or something like that. So that's what I did, remove and that, and finally we have something that is a bit more polished. We don't want to leave problems in your UI as a foundation, and the reason why is simple, because when you leave issues, when you leave problems with the design and then you bring that to Cursor, well, Cursor is going to keep those problems, and in fact, it's going to amplify those problems. Purple gradients or issues with the buttons or issues with because it's doing its job, right? Like, it's like you're asking it to extend a design, a styling that you already have created, and it's going to continue with those. If those are problematic, it's going to continue on those problems as well. So which is why you kind of want the ideation and the concept phase to be as polished as you can, but thinking that some of these things would be more like placeholders rather than the final thing, such as icons, for example. And that, it's going to be easy for you to replace them as you do get to the finish line and to the full product. But here, this is pretty cool. And, from here, this is just from the prompting phase. And at this point, yeah, I can just change to light and dark mode. I can change the coloring. If I want something a little bit more like, orangey, this is really cool. Then it already gives me something that is far more unique than what I have here. And then I can change the font. I can go with Jakarta, or I can go with Geist or Manrope. Small little things. Keep in mind that in this design, we don't have headings. So you're not going to see a huge difference because we're just essentially changing between the body fonts. But the colors definitely have a big difference. And in terms of presentation, you can also, again, change quickly. So here we have low resolution avatars, and we don't want to have low resolution avatars. So we're going to use Unsplash, and then we're going to search for face, and then we're going to change. So in this case, I believe this is a female, and I'm going to replace that And oh, I can see here. So I can replace with the female and then the male here. So obviously I can spend a lot more time, but I'm just gonna go really quickly and efficiently. And there you go. So that's how easy it is to change the avatars or the images in a design. You don't need to go one by one and clicking one by one. Sometimes, again, it's very difficult. And the same with the background. I can, if I want like a cooler presentation or something a bit more unique, I can change the background. Some of these backgrounds are interactive, which is kind of cool. So when you present this to your client and they see something like this, maybe they think that you spend a few days more than you actually did, which is funny, right? Because at the end of the day, it's hard to gauge sometimes, especially in the world of AI, how long you have spent in a design. But experience counts, right? If you have 10 years of experience, 5 years of experience, or 1 year of experience with AI, all of that counts. And what you're applying to your design, regardless of how much time you spend on that design, it definitely counts, and it shows in the client because it's intentional. So that's what you want. You want something that is unique enough, but that really amplifies your skills. So in this case, that's exactly what we're doing right here. Like we're amplifying our skills and our experience and our tastes, and we're, picking something that looks like, polish and fun, and still didn't take, dozens of hours to create that. So this is really cool. And this is exactly what I would have done. And then I'm happy with this. I'm going to save it. And again, we're going to see before and after. So this is before, and then this is after, right? So you can see that's quite a difference in the details and the coloring and the fonts. So we have more than 1,000 of these templates, and you can definitely remix them, which is even better, because if you remix something from something that already has code and specific designs and systems and tailwind colors, it's going to be a far more precise, and you can check by the week or by the month to see which ones are really popular, and find something that you like based on the category, the kind of sections of the design that you want. So yeah, you're gonna find the animation that you want and all that stuff, and then from here you're going to remix those designs. So try and do that, and of course go to your favorite website, take a screenshot, put that. It has far more context than just typing "build me a website," which a lot of people do that, unfortunately. But it's often a hit or miss, right? If you want to be more consistent with what you can create, that looks beautiful, it's important to have context, to use the prompt builder, to kind of like understand the terms and all that stuff, or even better, include the design, the image, the HTML, and then you're gonna get the best possible designs that you can get from. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.